Hey, what's up, my comic book aficionados? It's your boy J-Rock. Today we're gonna be hitting you with another X-Men review. We're gonna be doing the Skinner of Souls. This covers X-Men issues 17 through 24 and annual number 2. This it gets a little tricky because the issues jump back and forth between Fatal Attractions and the second half of this review. So you get some spoilers of what already happened in the other book. So it gets a little weird. Okay, so let's get started on this. Story arc takes place directly after Executioner's Song. Now, here you start off with Colossus and some of the X-Men going to Russia to visit Colossus' family. This is kind of to put closure on the story arc before Executioner's Song. That one's called Bishop's Crossing. In that story arc, um, Colossus' brother committed suicide. He kind of went mad. He lost it. He did some things and ended up dead. So this is just to put a close to that story. He's going to Russia to tell his parents and so forth, and kind of mourn a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like deal with the death of like still wondering like what happened. Why did he go crazy? Here he's lifting up his little sister Illyana. Some of you may know her as Magik. Now here she's a little kid again. Something happened when she was a teenager. Then now she's a kid again. So then after that we jump to what the other X-Men are doing. And you see here, Cyclops is with Psylocke, and Psylocke has these psychic powers, right? So she accidentally like touches Cyclops, and she could read his thoughts. And you see in his thoughts, he's like dreaming of making out with her. So she kind of smiles, like she knows that he's attracted to her, and he's thinking of like, making out with her and so forth. And then he just trips out. He's like, "Oh, you read my mind." So then Cyclops is walking around. He's about to go to the restroom, and Psylocke is taking a shower, and now he feels uncomfortable being around their period. At this point, it's not clear if this is actually Cyclops' thoughts or Psylocke is giving him these suggestions because she has the power of she could control people's minds. You know, she's a psyche. So we're like, is that him or is that her being into him? And by her thinking it, she has the power of making him do it because it already activated her superpowers, right? So we're not quite clear on what's going on here yet. But it's an excuse to drop more sexy pictures of Psylocke, because that was a popular thing back then. Okay, so now the X-Men, they found out some weird supernatural activities are going on in a certain little village or city in Russia, right? So they want to go check things out. It could be mutant activity. Once they get there, um, we get another picture of Silas just posted here, kind of showing her butt, and you're gonna get a lot of this in this story arc. I was like, why do they constantly draw her this way in this position? I was like, it's the artist just really into Psylocke. You know what I'm saying? But don't worry, guys. It's not just gratuitous. Like there's a reason for it. It's gonna explain it in the story as we keep going. All right. So bear with me. Be patient with that. Um, so as the X Men are there, they find out it's a mutant, and this is affecting everybody. Everybody's like brain dead, just frozen, right? Like in a coma kind of, except all the children. And then we find out these Russian soldiers are also there, so they bump into the X Men, and they're there looking for Omega Red. So they're there for two different reasons. But once the soldiers see what's happening, they kind of go with the X Men. They're like, hey, we gotta find out what's going on with all the people in the village, right? Now, as Omega Red is fighting the X Men, you see the fight through the X-Men's view. They're fighting Omega Red. Then you see it through Omega Red's view. He's not fighting the X-Men. In his mind, he's fighting this other mutant. Omega Red calls him the Mind Raper, and he's fighting him. And it's kind of like another version of Omega Red. And turns out this guy's powers, this mutant, he's kind of like Mastermind, where he gets in your brain and he makes you see things and plays with your vision and your what you're thinking and what you're seeing, right? With your psyche. So you see who Omega Red's fighting in his mind. It's somebody else. This guy's called the Skinner of Souls. Now the X-Men catch on. They're like, wait, Omega Red's saying things that don't make sense. He's being controlled. It's not really him. It's someone brainwashing him. He's fighting the X-Men, but he's also trying to fight this guy, this Mind Raper, and he's trying to like reason with him here in his thoughts, right, in his psyche. As all this is happening, he grabs Psylocke and he's reasoning with Psylocke, but it really in his psyche, it's the Soul Skinner again. So we show another picture of Psylocke's butt. Why not, right? So after this, we cut to another scene where they're raiding Colossus's pad where his parents and everybody's at, because they're trying to get Illyana. It turns out this mutant that the government was looking for is Colossus's little sister. What are the odds of that, right? So they think she has some type of super powerful mutant ability that they can use to their advantage. You know, the government, right? With all their shady stuff all the time. So in order to get Illyana, there was casualties. They killed Colossus' parents. Off panel too. What disrespect, man. Like, they didn't even show a panel of it happening, you know? But anyway, so they don't show it. I thought that's a pretty big moment, should be on panel, but you know, they didn't show it. But now the Skinner of Souls has his eyes set on Cyclops. And he's messing with his psyche now. I'm like, what a piece of shit you are, Cyclops. You left your wife and kids, Madeline Pryor and baby Cable. You sent them to the future just so you gotta deal with his problems. Left your wife to get back with your ex-girlfriend Jean Grey the moment she's back around. So he's like messing with Cyclops' head, right? And then he's telling him, now you want to leave Jean Grey for this other new young Asian psyche named Psylocke, like, and Cyclops is just going crazy, like, oh, because he's messing with his mind, right? So he passes out, and he's doing this to other X-Men. So it looks like the bad guys got him beat, right? He hears them talking, and they're talking about how they just raided his house, and he's like, "What did you guys do, my house?" And then he grabs one of them. Turns out, the soldier tells him, "Okay, we raided your house." He goes, "I did know about that they were gonna do it because we need your little sister's powers." He goes, "But it turns out they killed his parents." And he tells them, "I didn't know they were gonna do that. There was not to be any casualties. That don't put that on me, right?" And Colossus is pissed right now. You know, his parents he just found out they just died right now while they were fighting Omega. Okay, so now Omega Red turns towards Colossus. He's fighting Colossus, so that leaves the Russian soldier free now. Once this happens, Psylocke attacks him from behind with her psyche blades, and she gets into his brain, so she kind of sees what makes him tick. And through going through Omega Red, she also goes through the Sinner Souls. So she finds out his little daughter died. And this is the way he's coping with it. You know, he's feeling miserable like shit. And because he has this psyche power, the fact that he's feeling like this, he makes everybody else be in a coma and be miserable, right? And that helps him cope with it, I guess. So it's kind of like that's where that saying comes from, where misery loves company. Where some people work that way. That's what makes them tick. Like they fail at things, they're not good at something, and the only thing that brings happiness to them is to see others fail or others be miserable. And that's kind of what's going on here. So as we find out this through Psylocke, the Russian soldier, boom, shoots the Skinner of Souls in the head, takes him out the game, villains out of commish. Once they do that, they go back to get Colossus' little sister Illyana. She's kind of sick when he gets her. He's like, she must have caught something, you know, like she must have the flu. Taking care of his sister while he's also coping with the death of his parents. And then we jump back to Psylocke for a moment. She's wearing this skin tight dress, and we get another butt shot, of course. Now, Andy Kubert, as I said earlier, he's doing this on purpose. There's a point to it. And even Jubilee's like, well, this is a I want to have sex dress. Like, it's so obvious. You're trying to look sexy for someone. She goes and she's kind of trying to seduce Cyclops. So the writer's hinting at this because he's making Jubilee say this stuff so we could put it in the reader's mind, like what's going on here. Now we're questioning if this is actually Psylocke, if it's even her, because Betsy Braddock was a European from. Okay, so after all this happens, Jean Grey's like, I gotta have a talk with you, Psylocke. What you doing with my man, right? Get your hands off him. It gets very soap opera here. Very like a fucking primetime soap opera, not those regular daytime ones. You know, like, so she's like, don't touch my man, stay away from him. You know, he's into psyches and whatnot, right? And you're one, so you're now a threat to our relationship. As this happens, this ninja named Quanin shows up. Bam! She shows up, and it looks like she just chops Psylocke's head off, but she doesn't. It's since she's a psyche, she's just making her think that, right? And Psylocke's like, oh. But then, as they're fighting, we get this whole story about. Check it out now. It makes sense why Psylocke is acting this way. Psylocke originally is Elizabeth Braddock. She's of British descent. She's European, and obviously here she looks Asian, right? So back in the days, she was about to die over in Japan, and this assassin named Quanin found her, tried to save her, but when she touched her, her psychic abilities, they acted up because she was like having a seizure or whatever. So her powers were out of whack. And she kind of got this got into this ninja's brain, so they merged together. And it turns out now she got the skills, the ninja skills and fighting abilities and the body of this ninja, right? She looks Asian and whatnot now. Now she no longer looks European. And now she can fight. And she also has her psyche mutant powers. So that's Betsy Braddock. But what about the other person, right? Kwanin. So right here, this is Kwanin, the girl that just came out, and she's always been a ninja assassin, but now she has the mutant abilities of Psylocke, of Betsy Braddock. So they're like, okay, what's going on here? It gets all super confusing, like a soap opera. I'm your long lost twin and whatnot. So she's like, I'm Elizabeth Braddock. The other one's Elizabeth Braddock. Who's the real Elizabeth Braddock and who's the real Psylocke? Issue ends, and in the new issue, all of a sudden, Kwanin's hair is curly with no explanation. It's a new artist, so I guess he decided to do that so you could separate the two, because Kwanin and Elizabeth Braddock look so much alike. They probably thought the reader will get confused. This will make things easier. So I have no qualms with that. It is what it is, right? So we hop into the next issue where Professor Xavier says the only way we could find out is maybe if I get into your guys' mind and see who really is Psylocke and who's Kwanin. Kwanin says, I'm all for it. I want to find out the truth. Psylocke says, no, that's an invasion of privacy. That's like a rape, right? So it turns out Psylocke has had issues with this before because she's in previous story arcs, she's been taken advantage of. We'll get to those at a later time when we cover those story arcs. So here she says no, so they go, well, I guess we can't find out the simple way. We got to find out another way. So they go, let's go back to Japan where everything started. They go back to Japan, and when they go to this person named Matsuo's house, turns out Kwanin was Matsuo's bodyguard and hitman for hire, right? Like his assassin or whatever. And also, I think his girlfriend, his love interest. So they go, this is where it started. He'll know what's going on. He'll know which one's Betsy Braddock and who's Kwanin, basically, right? So we're going inside, and there's this poster of Kwanin. There's this big picture of Kwanin with a samurai sword and so forth. They're like, oh no, like, and it has a scroll. They're reading the scroll, and basically the gist of it is nobody's Elizabeth Braddock anymore, and nobody is Kwanin anymore. You're both Psylocke now. You both now have psyche mutant power, and you both have ninja skills. So that other two people don't exist anymore, and now you're just both a copy of each other. And now that we found this out, they're both bummed out. They're both like, this sucks. This can't be. The Silver Samurai shows up to protect the house right there, Matsuo's house, and he's talking up. They're like, why do you want to fight us? And he's like, well, I could regain my honor within the Asian mob, basically, if I do this favor for him as to protect the house, right? He's basically sucking up to this organized crime, right? They dispose of him fairly quick. The two Psylocke just do the Psyche Blade. They double team on them. And so then we jump back to Cyclops. He's with his grandparents, telling them how Cyclops' parents just died, and he appreciates family more, so he wanted to come visit them, while they're still around, and he needed to take a break from the X-Men because with the Skinner of Souls, how he got into Cyclops' psyche, he's now thinking that I do the right thing, abandoning my son, and the baby mama, she's dead, and now I'm back with my old girlfriend and thinking about this other new psyche. So he needed to get away from all that. It was just too much. Sometimes you have these anxiety attacks. You can't be in a house full of other people. You need just time to yourself. So here with his grandparents, he can just relax for a while, whine and relax. As all this is happening, his grandparents, the neighbor shows up. He's talking to Cyclops, and Cyclops is like, I don't believe we've ever met. He goes, yeah, we've met before. I met you as a kid. You don't remember me? Cyclops says, no. And then bam, we get a little flash of him. It's Mr. Sinister. So Mr. Sinister always has some sinister plans. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta see what he's up to. So Cyclops immediately reacts and shoots Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister tells him, I come in peace. Stop exaggerating. I have to talk to you. He tells him in the future, your son Strife, he's an asshole, and he came back to the past, being the present, our present, to unleash this legacy virus. He's the one that's responsible for it. Now Cyclops is like, oh, so he's responsible for the virus. And now he's like, so Strife is my son, not Cable. Cable's just some cheap clone. Now he's thinking like, wow, like, is that why, since I sent my son out to the future without a father, he grew up to be a piece of shit, right? Like, and he's not blaming himself. My son became this because I wasn't there for him to raise him, right? And Mr. Sinister's telling him, regardless, that's another question for another day. Right now, I'm here to tell you he's unleashing this virus to kill all mutants. And I gotta protect you because Mr. Sinister's always been infatuated with Jean Grey and Cyclops' bloodline. So he's always, Mr. Sinister's kind of always been Cyclops' main villain, if you will. Okay, now this next issue, it feels a little out of place here because this issue should really take place after you read Fatal Attraction's book 1, which is the following story arc to this one, right? To this book. Because this is giving you a lot of spoilers of what happened in that book, and this issue would be like after that book will finish, right? The first half of the book 1. So here, Illyana's already dead. She dies in that other book, in book 1 of Fatal Attractions. So here she's already dead. Kitty Pryde is consoling Jubilee, which it should be the other way around, in my opinion, because Kitty Pryde had a good relationship with Illyana. Jubilee did not. She didn't know her that well. So she should be consoling Kitty Pryde, which she does in the other story arc and when you read the other book. And now here they're telling the same story vice versa. Now Kitty Pryde is consoling Jubilee. And Jubilee is like, man, even little kid X-Men can die, and that sucks. Like, life as an X-Men's whack, you know? Like, we die, nobody appreciates it. We spend our life just fighting for others. Others could have a better life while we're living a sucky life. And she's like, even little kids could die, and she's young herself. She's a teenager, so she's feeling vulnerable, and she doesn't want to waste what little bit of life she might have. She doesn't want to waste it as an X-Men fighting other people's battles, you know. So she's questioning all this. Then here, Cyclops comes back to the mansion. He's talking to Professor Xavier, like, I'm back. I just needed to unwind and so forth. Then he goes talks to Jean Grey and to Xavier, explaining to them, you know, I bumped into Mr. Sinister. He told me about how Strife had the legacy, he brought the legacy virus to our present time. And Professor Xavier, in the previous issue, being on the Fatal Attractions book, he had just come to this discovery himself. Like, yeah, that's what we were figuring ourselves. We were thinking Strife may have brought it. So they both came to the conclusion around at the same time. They were just in different areas of the world. And then he tells Jean Grey, you know, how much he loves her. And, you know, if these are their last days, if all mutants are dying one by one, he hopes that his last days are still with her. They're together. And then she's telling him the same thing. Like, basically, he's letting her know he fears breaking up with her or losing her more than he fears death. So, you know, he's also kind of questioning God. Why does God do this to mutants? So there are, you know, people get religious when times are hard. And they, you know, they have no place to go. All of a sudden, those people start praying and they start looking to God and they start believing. You need to have these type of experiences. Now we jump into X-Men Annual number 2. It's the last issue on this review. It starts off with a fight between the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and these other characters that were working with the Brotherhood at in an earlier story arc. They kind of formed this type of Suicide Squad where they all had to work for the government. Now here they're fighting each other. And this mutant named Frederick stops them from fighting. He goes, I invited them. They're welcome here. He goes, I'm building this island called Imperium. This is where he invited them to. And he says, here all mutants will get along. There will be none of that fighting each other. No bigotry. So they learn to get along. They're kicking at the mansion. And this guy, Frederick, turns out he wrote this book. And he caught the attention of a lot of people, like humans and mutants. Because there was a lot of things said in that book that, you know, were interesting, to say the least, right, to people. And now as he's talking to the mutants here, to the Brotherhood and everybody, Blob makes this gay joke because these two characters are always hanging out together. I think it's Avalanche and Pyro. They're always hanging out together. And he made this gay joke saying, all right, just kiss already. Like, you're always hanging out. You always argue together and forgive each other. And Frederick immediately flexes his mutant power. So now you know he's a mutant. At first he came off like a preacher or something. Flexes his power, just destroys Blob with it. So he has a very powerful mutant ability. And he says those type of comments will not be tolerated here. Blob immediately gets the point. He says, okay, He goes, this is a place where everybody should feel comfortable. Nobody should be talked down by another person. Professor X, Beast, and Cyclops have all read this guy's book, and they're all talking about it. Who is this guy? We need to find out more about him. He's really he's on CNN, he's on Geraldo, Oprah, he's everywhere. He's making headlines because he has something important to say, right? And his book is about, he's defending mutants a lot. He's saying we should get to know them, don't judge them. Maybe some of these mutant powers they have could actually help us. We could use them to work for us in government and in jobs and so forth. So they don't have to be using them all the time in fights against, to defend themselves. So they're like, needless to say, they're paranoid, they're worried, like, why would someone defend us so much? Humans, for the most part, are not down with us. So they're like, what, does he have a secret agenda, another motive? So they want to go meet him, and he says, yeah, everyone's welcome in this Imperium of mine. Invites him with no problem. He goes, come check out the place. The U.S. government also is like, this guy's too dangerous. He's whatnot, right? That's what the government thinks. So they also go to see what's this guy really up to. Why is he trying to bring mutants and humans together? Why is, that's one thing, people say this a lot. One thing the government fears is for all of us to get along. They don't want that for their own reasons, right? So anyways, we go back to the island, and as they meet this mutant, they're questioning him and so forth, and they're quoting some of his stuff on his book, which I thought was real nice right here, a nice touch. So you kind of get a feel for his words when they quote him, and he's like, oh yeah, that was on chapter this of my book, so you guys have read it. And so you see what he's preaching, and it's he sends a good message. He seems like a good guy. Okay, so all the X-Men, they're like, this guy's too perfect. All these mutants look up to him, admire him like he's God. They're like, we don't trust that. We don't trust that, right? So then Pyro starts having like a seizure. This Frederick helps him, eases pain, and he feels better. And they go, so you're a mutant. Okay, now explains why you want to help mutants. But then they're like, but your power is to absorb others' powers and energies, and so you could get stronger. So you're using them because they're in the desperate time of need. They need to believe in something, right? So you're taking advantage of that and taking their juice to strengthen yourself. And Pyro says, no, look, I got the virus. I'm dying. We're all dying. Let us live in peace our last days. He heals us temporarily every time we're in pain. So we could at least live our last days in comfort without all this pain while we die, right? And Cyclops says, we're taking all of you. Psylocke, the other Psylocke Quanin, she says, who are you to play? You're blaming him for trying to play God, but you're trying to play God with these people's lives. Let them live at peace. Let it be. And he goes, who are you to judge? He tells Quanin, and Quanin shows him. She says, I got the legacy virus. I'm also dying. So if anybody knows how these people feel, it's me. They had a little debate about this for a second, and they're like, maybe we should we don't see anything wrong. We desperately want to find something wrong with this cat, but he's all right. Like, he's just trying to help. So they're like, I guess we just leave him. So the American government shows up too last minute, and they go, okay, so what's going on? And they're talking to Cyclops because they also don't trust this guy. And Cyclops says, we've been here a while. We honestly didn't find anything shady. They don't even tell him he's a mutant. They say they're just trying to live in peace and be on their own. There's nothing wrong going on here. So the issue kind of ends there. So this story arc touches on religion a lot. More importantly, on God and on when people start believing. Because people here have the legacy virus, and they get religious. They go to this island and they see this guy Frederick as God. Then Colossus starts questioning God as well. He starts questioning Professor X, which is kind of like who he sees as God. He says there has to be a higher being. There has to be a better way than Professor X's way. And I'm just spending my life saving people that don't even appreciate it, that still hate us. So he's questioning his religion, being the X-Men. He's wants to find another way. There has to be something else to believe in. There has to be a better life out there than this miserable life we're living, as just fighting all the time for equality. He wants to just kind of forget about all that and just enjoy his life. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I found that interesting because this is true when people are faced with bad situations. If you had friends that been like shot or in hospitals facing death, or family members that are sick and maybe they're dying. I remember this especially back when I was younger, back in the days. People will start going to church and really start believing, and they'll start preaching to others, to the like to us, a lot of our older generation, our uncles, our older cousins. Once they face these situations, they will start getting religious, going to church and preaching to you, to the younger generation that was us. Like, don't live the life I was living. I see where you guys are headed. You don't want to live that. You don't want to face these experiences because they suck, right? And though, our parents would force us to go to church, we would all go to church. We wouldn't practice what we preach, we wouldn't live that life, but we would go to church and hear it. Once we leave, we would still be, smoking weed and drinking underage and doing other things kids do. I feel that's something that I don't see as much with the, like, say, people in my generation, my friends that grew up. I don't really see them doing that with their kids as much as our parents did with us. But also, I do see that their kids, most of my friends' kids, are good kids that weren't doing the things we were doing either. So we're not as religious because you kind of have to have those bad experiences to believe in God, or to believe in something. And that was very interesting. I kind of liked where it went there, what it was trying to do. And also the main story arc with then we had the story arc with the two Psylocks, very soap opera-ish, like, oh, here comes my long lost twin I never knew I had. We've seen that done a million times in novellas. But there was a point to it. They just didn't know what to do, how to clear this up, so they just gave us what they could. The point was Psylocke's story. It was Betsy Braddock. Her mind went into this Asian assassin ninja girl's body. So for years we were like, okay, so you're in this Asian ninja's body. We get that. So what happened to your body, to Betsy Braddock's body, right? So for years this was being asked. So this was a way of kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say retconning, but explaining and fixing up her canon to this character Psylocke. So they're like, look, okay, here's the other ninja character, and now she got the laser virus and she's dead. That's what happened to Betsy Braddock's body. Okay, now that we got that cleared out the way, that was the point of it, was to clear that mess up. So fans will stop asking the same shit over and over. So now we gave you guys an explanation, and it was a sucky explanation, whack story, but it cleared things up a bit for us, so we stopped asking that shit. Okay, so that was basically the point of this story. So that's the end of this review. Hopefully you guys liked the video. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to see the continuation, the following video, hit the subscribe button. That way it keeps you updated. And I'll check you guys out next time.